God has established three different institutions that are all very sacred in their duty toward Him, but all have very different things that they are intended to accomplish. God is the one that started the family as the very oldest of the institutions. In the Garden of Eden, He took Adam and made him sleep and took a rib from his side and made the woman and brought Eve to him. And the result was Adam said, "This is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She'll be called woman. And for this reason, a man will leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and the two will be one flesh." And so God started the family. Then God started civil government. Now, every kind of government has been there, even the time when God ruled and was the king for the nation of Israel. They had a theocracy in which they were to go directly to God, and God sent people to lead in given areas. But even civil government, after that way of doing things had been done away and the church had been established, and the Roman authority was the primary government of the day. But even then, God would say to us that we ought to honor and respect those civil authorities. He told us to pray for kings and for all that are in authority, that we might lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness. And so there is civil government. The third and youngest of the institutions that God has started is the church. And Jesus would say when he was upon the earth, "Upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades will never prevail against it. And I'll give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." The church, through the book of Acts and through the different letters in the New Testament, is most often referred to as the church of God, or it's called the house of God, or the house of the living God, or the church of the firstborn, or the church of the saints, or the churches of Christ. All of these are ways of referring to that body that has a divine way or purpose for being. Now, please understand something with this. God gave each of these a very exact kind of duty that they were to accomplish in the world. The family has an obligation, the government has obligation, and then the church has obligations that it is to fulfill. And the greatest problem that we face in life with regard to these is that one will step over and get involved in the other. When government tries to move in and run the church and tell us how church is to be done, it's out of place. It's doing what it has no right to do. But when church tries to tell government how to act, that's not right either. God didn't intend for the church to move in and try to become the governing authority. And so either way, that is wrong. Think for just a moment about some of the distinctions. We hear a lot about what the government does, for example, in welfare and in benevolent care. Someone will say, well, those are things the church ought to be doing. And sometimes that's right. But more times than not, what is really the case is that government is doing things that God intended the family to do. 1 Timothy chapter 5, Paul said, family ought to provide for one another in times of need, and that the church shouldn't be charged with that unless the person doesn't have family to help. If we could get all three to do the duty God gave them, it would be amazing how well they would work.